Spring has sprung.
Yeah.
All right, you are live streaming on YouTube. Susan Michelle, this mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Western Massachusetts. It is great to be here as always. I am the author of Surrender to Joy From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we're all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. I have my good friend and soul sister from Boca Raton, Florida, Myrna Skoller, here with me. She is the author of Private Lessons with Jesus, which I love, 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 which is such a great companion to the workbook for students. How are you today, Myrna?
Thank you, Susan. I'm wonderful today. The weather is beautiful, though it's been beautiful all along. I know last week you said the temperature was in the 70s and then went down to like very low, and now it's back up there. So, the temperature seems to be very fickle where you are. Here it's more consistent, I'm happy to say.
You're absolutely right. It was nice, and then over the weekend we had a snowstorm,
Yeah, yeah.
which was crazy. I woke up and it was snowing and it was sleeting and it was just a horrible day. And then now it's back up to the 70s, so you never know. The bugs are out. That's something I found on my run this morning. The bugs are out, so I have to start using my bug spray again. But as our good friend Sherry always says, it's all good, right, Myrna? It's all good.
All good. It's all good. As long as we
And
keep thinking that and embodying it, that's exactly what it is.
yeah, I have a story about that. I am going to start out with the introduction of my book because I think that just about says it all for me. I like to recite that as often as possible. What I write is I write, my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be simplified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. And it's just so interesting about how we have so much power within us when we focus on the truth. But in this earthly classroom, the choice is so apparent. And I have experienced both extremes within the past hour, which I think I'm going to start with because, I worked out this morning, and I think I worked out a little too much, and I was just very tired. And then I was eating my lunch, and during lunch I was watching the news, and it's amazing the horrific stories that are happening like in the world today. Like it's just like it just blows my mind what really horrible things are happening in the world, and what people, the crimes that people are committing. Like it's just, and I could feel my energy go down and down and down as I was focusing on this dense ego operated energy. Like it was just, oh, I was feeling horrible. And then I say to myself, oh my gosh, how am I going to talk, on Pal Talk YouTube with my friend Myrna? I'm like, my thoughts are so low. And I started sharing a few things with my husband and getting very angry about current events. And then I went upstairs to, just start doing my makeup, start listening to Course in Miracles. And all of a sudden, I could feel my energy elevate itself again. And I was listening to the words of Course in Miracles and how God is always with me and God loves me and God created me. I did not create create him, and he's always available to me. And I could feel my energy elevate itself. And then I just realized how much I love A Course in Miracles and how very true it is. And it just reminds me of the amazing I guess free will, the amazing choice that I have in each and every moment. I mean, the love is real. And when I connect to the reality of who I am, I feel empowered. I feel amazing. I feel exhilarated. I feel inspired. And this is the truth of who I am. I mean, today's lesson is lesson 104. I seek but what belongs to me in truth. And I have access to that truth anytime I choose to tap into it. But again, it's very apparent that the world is run on the egoic thought system, and that dense energy is there, but it's something A Course in Miracles is teaching us to release. Any thoughts, Myrna?
I have a lot of thoughts about that because I watch the news a lot. But you see, I love what's going on in the news. I don't let it get me mad at all. I think that it's only good. I think we're really in a very good place. I'd
Yeah,
like to
but let
tell
me say one thing. This it's not about the politics. I'm talking about like murders is what I was watching. People that have committed murders. It wasn't politics.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. I mean, that can get you down, but even people who commit murders when they're caught and they have to, count for their crime, I mean, to me, it's a good thing. And we're not letting people get away with murders as of late, it looks like. But you talk about current events, and what came to mind over the weekend, and if I can relate it quickly, as quickly as I can, but it's what's going on in China right now that catches my attention. All the tariffs that are put in place by the United States against China. And I couldn't help thinking what happened when I was in China many years ago with my husband, Charlie. And we went to China. And what prompted me to go there was I was listening on the news to this man who was he was a professor at the University of Hong Kong. And he said that in China, the cities are beautiful. The Chinese are very, very, they cover up a lot of what is really there. And although the cities are beautiful, as you go into the countryside, you get a lot of dirt roads. And as you go further into the countryside, it's very, very poor. And two-thirds of the people live there. So that brought me back to when I went to China with Charlie. And yes, the cities, we went to Beijing and we went to Suzhou and we went to, where else did we went to other cities? What was one in particular? A major city. Anyway, it was all beautiful. And we were one of the first groups actually that was allowed to go into this to this commune, so to speak. For some reason, they allowed us to go in and visit. And we went to this commune, and people were living there. Were poor people, really. They were lovely, though. They were very welcoming. And when we got off the bus, there was a little band, little children's band clamoring and welcoming us with their drums and, little horns and flutes and whatever. But we got off the bus and they lined up to greet us. And we were shaking their hand. And there was a little girl, okay, who spotted me. And as I was going down the line, she spotted me again. We shake my hand. And then I go down the line a little further, and there she was again. Obviously, she was following me. And afterwards, of course, couldn't speak to each other. We took each other's hand, and we were walking along with the group and so forth. What brings me to this story was I was so taken with this village of children and people that were poor. At the time, I had a children's store in New York City. I had women's consignment as well, women's consignment stores. I also had a children's consignment store. And I said, this is going to be my mission. We have these sales. If it's children's clothing. Wait, let me get them. Let me turn this off. And there's a sale coming up. And there are tons of things left over from the sale. We have it twice a year. And my mission was going to be that I was going to pack up the things that were left over and I was going to send it to China. I was going to send it to this village in China. And that was really gave me so much joy. I spoke to the travel agent. His name was Tony. He was Chinese, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he said that was fine. He said I should send the goods to him, and he would make sure that these children in this village got the clothes that I was going to pack up. Sure enough, I went back, packed up 2 tremendous boxes, great big boxes full of clothes. I got the address, Tony's address. I was going to send it to China. It was like $250. I was happily going to pay for it. This was something that I wanted to do. As it turned out, I found out very quickly that I couldn't send 2 boxes. They wouldn't accept 2 big boxes. Finally broken down, it was a box, much smaller box, about a quarter of the size of 1 box. And that's all they would let me send. Okay, so I go through the items and I pick out the best things, and I pack it into this 1 box. It's better than nothing. Send it to Tony. They charge me for shipping, by the way. Tony calls me up a couple of weeks later and he says, I got to tell you, Myrna, don't send anymore. Don't do this anymore. I said, what happened? He said, well, the box arrived. They made me give them $50 more. Okay, I had already paid for shipping, but they charged him in China another $50. And they said that they would deliver it. And when he inquired, this village never got that box. Okay, so what made me see is that this is really what China is, the wonderful people. I mean, I had a wonderful time, but their government really kind of needs, I think, to be looked at and to be dealt with, maybe, and not, because to go along the lines of what, how they are, perhaps, it's not such a bad thing that we're getting involved as far as the tariffs go. So that kind of really gave me the impetus to feel more positive about instead of negative, really, about how the news is kind of transpiring. And I wasn't going to relate this story, but when you brought up the news, I just wanted to, give that rendition of how I was affected by it. So.
Yeah, that's a good story, Myrna. But yeah, like I said, the stories that were on during lunch had nothing to do with that. It was murders. It was murders, specifically murders, and it made me so angry that a large group of Americans, according to this story, were siding with the actual murderer. They were siding with the person that had committed the murders. And I started, my energy started going down. It had nothing to do with what you're talking about. But I think that's a great story. I think that's a very great story. Because I also think there's a lot of good things going on today. And I also think that when we focus on God and love and the truth of who we are, I mean, for me, I can feel my vibratory frequency rise. I mean, I tend to vacillate, like in this earthly classroom, as I say each week, I tend to vacillate. I started the day off with a Course in Miracles lesson. Today is the 104th day of 2025, and it's a beautiful lesson. I seek but what belongs to me in truth. I think I will read the first paragraph here. What Jesus writes through Helen Schuckman is, today's idea continues with the thought that joy and peace are not but idle dreams. They are your right because of what you are. They come to you from God, who cannot fail to give you what he wills. Yet must there be a place made ready to receive his gifts. They are not welcomed gladly by a mind that has instead received the gifts it made, where his belong as substitutes for them. I mean, so I just think about what this paragraph is relaying to us. I mean, God wants nothing else but to extend his love to me. God wants nothing else but to extend his love to all of us. But when I am not open and loving to receive his gifts, when I block his gifts, he cannot get through. So I have a choice. I can open my heart to receive the gifts of God and make myself happy and also make God happy, because Course in Miracles tells us very clearly that God needs us as much as we need him. So when I can open my heart to receive the gifts of God, that's where my peace, love, joy, and happiness lie. I mean, that's the only place that I can find the peace that I'm really searching for. So it's just very important for me to remember that as often as possible. A Course in Miracles says that when we are fearful, all we have to do is be still and remember that we are a part of God. Be still and remember that I am God. That's all we have to do when we get scared, because God is always there, just waiting for us to release our fear so we can feel the truth of who we are. And then in today's lesson, in the italicized sentences, what he is telling us to repeat to ourselves throughout the day is, I seek but what belongs to me in truth, and joy and peace are my inheritance. So I have been saying that to myself, and it brings a lot of peace to my mind. I mean, what we are seeking in the external world is not in the external world. What we are seeking in the external world is already within us. So that's why it's important to just be still as often as possible and remember the truth of who we are. It's so easy to get distracted. I mean, it really is. It's so easy to get distracted in this earthly classroom. I mean, there's so many things going on all the time. And again, it's like what we focus on expands in our mind. So when I focus on anything that's fearful, I get panicked, I get anxiety, and I always have that choice. The choice to fear is always there. But then the opposite is also true. Whenever I focus on love and truth and beauty, that's always there for me as well. And I've been realizing today how, again, A Course in Miracles is a book in mind training. It's teaching us to discipline our mind and focus on the beauty within ourselves. And when we focus on when we embody the essence of innocence, and when we focus on what's good within our heart and soul and being, then we can see that beauty in our external world as well. Right, Myrna?
Yes, that's true. And again, like what you said, when we focus on the news, it depends on what we focus on. And it depends, and it depends on how we interpret whatever we're seeing. It can evoke feelings of anger and wrath and not feeling at peace. Or it can, it depends on how we look at it, really. I think Tina Louise Spalding always says, turn off the news, don't even watch it,
Mm.
because it's really not, it's not, for the most part, it's true. They do promote fear. I mean, that's what the news does. I mean, it's all fearful when you think about it. And if we relate to the fear, then that's what we are going to experience. It's watching a movie. I look at the news as the best TV drama there is, really, because that's what it is. It's all drama. You're not going to get that in the movies. Truth is stranger than fiction, and what you're seeing, is can be very disruptive. So yes, so and you had said something earlier, which is really true. Your initial statement was that when we disconnect. It's as simple as that. When we disconnect from truth, then we are not peaceful because we're disconnecting from it. So, in order to stay within the peaceful elements of what we are made of nothing but love, and love is what the peace within us evokes. Love does bring out the best in us. And that's what we focus on. And today's lesson, the title of today's lesson, I seek what belongs to me in truth. And in this lesson, more or less, it's indicating that what belongs to us are all the wonderful feelings that we're given to feel, and that we are entitled to those feelings because they're given to us to feel by God. And when we, like you said, when we disconnect from those feelings, we're not really in truth experiencing who we are. So who we are is really an element, a part of God, and God is only love. And I keep telling myself over and over again when I disconnect that if God is only love and I'm created from that love, how can I be anything else? So why am I feeling this way? So again, like you promoted the Course in Miracles as being a wonderful teacher, because the Course in Miracles does give us the notion, which is the truth, that that keeps us centered, keeps we just stay centered and not fall off, not allow other things that go on during the course of a day, or perhaps a thought that might disrupt our peace, that might just come into our mind. For me, I have learned really when those thoughts come up to disperse those thoughts, to get rid of them. And how do I do that? I'll think of God. I'll think of the love that I feel so often when I allow myself, especially to feel that love that emanates from the part of me which connects to spirit. Spirit is God. And there you begin to see that there are two parts to who we are. It's the human part, the ego part, and the spiritual part, which is also human, but it's two different aspects of the same thing. So I'd rather really experience the happiness and the growth that I have been accelerating from since I started with the Course in Miracles. And as a result, I can transfer that onto someone else, transfer that love onto someone else. Thank you.
There was one beautiful story that I remembered when you were talking on the news, because I did watch the news for about half an hour during lunch. It started with this story about, I think, 6 women that went up in space. I don't know details, but Kate Perry was one of the women, and she was speaking. Do you want to say something?
No, I think I was just listening to it. I know what you're going to say. Yeah,
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah. And so what she said is she said that when she was taking off, all she felt was love. And all she felt was just that she had so much love to give. And she just, from her talk, connected to the reality of her being. I guess she just kind of released all her petty concerns, right, of the ego, realizing that those concerns not only don't they do they not matter, they're not real, and she just realized how much love she had to give. And then when she landed back on the earth, I think she kissed the ground. So, I mean, at any time you can just connect to the essence of love, it is a beautiful, miraculous moment. So that was a nice story that was being shared. And I completely can relate to that. Um, Another nice experience that I've had in the past couple days, we went to my husband and I, we went to a local orchestra. It was a band it was a military band. And it was just, really, really beautiful. I'm not a classical music lover, but I thought the performance was just wonderful. And what I like about watching bands is the fact that everybody, maybe there was about 50 different members to this band, and someone was playing a tambourine, someone was playing a guitar, there was a singer, there was a trumpet, and what I always like about musical performances is everybody is doing their own thing. However, they're working synchronistically with everyone else. So they're all a very important part of the group, but they're working together harmoniously, which I think is a beautiful thing to watch. It's a beautiful thing to experience, and it's always drawn me into musical performances. So that was a very nice experience. And then after the performance, we went out, we had a bite to eat. And I was talking to my sister-in-law, and we ended up with the three subjects they say you shouldn't talk about, right? Sex, politics, and religion. So we spent all dinner talking about number three, religion and spirituality, which is my favorite subject to talk about. That's my passion. And her mother was Lutheran. My mother is Lutheran. Her dad was Catholic. My dad was Catholic. So we had a lot of commonalities. We were talking a little bit about the belief system of Jehovah Witness, because her sister is now a Jehovah Witness. And I guess according to that religion, which I don't know that much about it, but I guess what they believe is that Jesus was a really great guy, but he's not the Son of God. So we're still waiting for they're still waiting for the Son of God. And then I kicked in and I shared, well, I believe that Jesus was the Son of God, divine of God. But as a Course in Miracles student, I believe I am too, or I have the potential to do as he did. That's what he's teaching me to do. And then she says to me, well, you'll never be able to turn water into wine. I don't see us ever being able to turn water into wine, because that's what it said in the Bible. When I thought about it, and there are so many miracles that I believe that Jesus performed, years ago. But also, as a Course in Miracles student, did Jesus turn the water into wine? I guess he did. I mean, I don't know, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing, and what a miracle really is anything that comes from love is a miracle. So that's what I believe Jesus is teaching us to do through A Course in Miracles. Because turning water into wine or walking on the water, or all these miracles that are documented in the Bible, I mean, they're, you know, thought-provoking and exciting, but the real miracle isn't the walking on the water. The real miracle is just loving to a great, just loving totally. That's the miracle. That's what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do. Thoughts?
Yeah, love. That's what it does to you. It does help us find that love. Even though it's there, it helps us not find it. It's there. I think it helps us to get in touch with that love. And I just want to go back to my earlier story about this little girl, talk about love. I fell in love with this little girl. We really stayed together a good part of the afternoon as we were roaming around this little village, and she had my hand the whole time. And then when it was time to leave and I was on the bus, she was looking up at me, from below, and I was going like this to her, and she was doing it back.
Mm.
And she was doing it back. I mean, if that's not universal, I don't know what is. We were exchanging, that love that was, and it so illuminated me that this stayed with me for a long time. It really did. That little girl that I had met, somehow we just connected. Okay, there were no words, there didn't have to be, but all that we found in each other was love. Okay, and that's really the way it is. You don't even have to talk about it. All you need to do is feel it, and then it's conveyed. If you feel love for someone, truly, whether it be a relative, a friend, a neighbor, anybody, somebody you kind of just bump into and smile at, there's a certain love that exchanges when you're smiling at each other. That's all that really needs to be done. And that's what I try to really, um, I'd like to say understand. You never understand it. All you can do is feel it, to feel it. And the feeling is unmistakable. And that's really what we need, I think sometimes gets lost in the translation when you try to talk about something, and it really doesn't come out the way you want it to. It's not really expressed the way you want it to be expressed. But the truth is, you really don't need words. You just need actions, gestures, and the love that is there, that is not just contained to the human body. It's so much more than that. It just, if you can feel love, it lights up the world. And the Course in Miracles says, I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world because I have the power as one small, tiny, nothing, insignificant speck of dust is how the ego sees us, as that instead of this enormous entity that is so powerful that we couldn't possibly understand all that our powers can do. And when I latch onto that, I am at peace. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not worried about the past. I'm not worried about the future. I'm right here at this moment, in the present moment, in the present time, and that's all there is anyway. So what we're experiencing in the present, is really the best place to be, because you're not going to. If you can really manage to stay within that realm of thought, being in the present moment, then the emotions of the ego are not going to trample on that sacred place. It just doesn't happen. So, that's why being in the moment, training ourselves to be in the moment, training ourselves not to concentrate on anything but what's going on in the moment. And that takes practice. Yes, we're doing things. Yes, we're arranging parties. Yes, we're going out with friends. Yes, we have to decide what to wear, for tonight's meeting or whatever, today's meeting, tonight's get together with friends. I mean, whatever it is. But at the same time, we can do all that in the present moment. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I love the story with the little Chinese girl. Just out of curiosity, how old was she, the
She
little
was
girl?
about 6 or 7 years old.
Okay, that's very cute. Very,
And
very
she was
cute.
the one that really kind of motivated me to want to do good things for this people in this village. And I had this whole thing that I was going to kind of, change this whole village because I could send them a lot of, boxes of clothes. But, again, it didn't work out that way. These kids weren't allowed to accept it, whatever. But, that I think it was this kid that I fell in love with that gave me the impetus to want to do this. That's all.
That's beautiful. That's very beautiful. And when you did that little gesture, so you couldn't speak to her because you were American, she was Chinese, so the words weren't well, the words weren't available to you because you didn't speak the same language, but you were both embodying the essence of love, and that's what got transmitted between the two of you. And that's very, very beautiful. And I think that really connecting to the energy of a child, is so empowering because children, they're just so innocent. They're just so innocent. I remember this one story that happened to me. It was on the subway. It wasn't on the subway, though. It was on the train. It was on the train between Manhattan and Secaucus, New Jersey. And I was very like vibrationally high at the time. I had a really, really elevated consciousness, and I was really connecting to the energy of love. And I had my earpods on, and I was listening to some music. And I was kind of like swaying to the music, when you're just connected to music and aliveness and high vibratory frequency. And what happened, I remember this day, is my front tooth had fallen out. So I wasn't smiling. I was trying not to smile, but I was still feeling really high and happy. And then there was this little girl across the way. She was sitting in the seat looking at me, and she saw how high my energy was. And all of a sudden, she started smiling and laughing and looking at me. And she had a missing front tooth because she's a kid and kids lose their teeth. And then I just, without thinking, started smiling at her. And then I realized that I was missing my front tooth too. But I didn't care, I wasn't embarrassed about it because I was just high on life and connected to love. So, yeah, it's really beautiful what happens when you connect to that higher vibrational frequency. And I think when you connect to someone else that's in that same elevated state, you even go higher, in the energy of love. Because A Course in Miracles is very clear that when we are connected to our brothers, we can go even higher. We can't make it to heaven alone. We need our brothers. And when we're both elevated and when we can connect on that high frequency, it's just such a beautiful state to reside in. So, and I think, with me and the toothless child, I was toothless, she was toothless. We didn't exchange any words, we didn't talk. we just kind of, it was clear that we were both like at a elevated level, at a higher and more elevated level. Yeah, I can think of different times like that, different times where I just picked up that energy from someone else, and it just made me feel really alive and happy. And when you're in this state of love, words are inconsequential. Words are meaningless. I mean, A Course in Miracles is, A Course in Miracles is very clear that A Course in Miracles uses words to relay information to us. Words are used as communication devices, communication tools. But, no matter how well intellectually we understand the words of A Course in Miracles, that's not the end goal. The end goal is to connect to the love. Well, the end goal is to release our blocks to love, so we can tap into the essence of who we are. So the words are, I guess, the way, the medium. Words are a tool, pathway, but the goal is not to intellectually understand A Course in Miracles. The goal is to live in love. The goal is to connect to the truth of who we are. That's what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do. And each time I can connect to any paragraph at all, any sentence at all, any idea at all in A Course in Miracles, I just feel so peaceful and so joyful. And, what I can say about my experience earlier today is I literally transformed very quickly from the egoic thought system, which was based on fear and anger, and I was, for me, I was sucked into the negative events of the news. And then I turned off the news, started listening to Course in Miracles, and I could feel my vibration rise. I could feel myself connect to the truth of who I am. So it's just so apparent that at each and every moment we have a choice. And I realized how horrible it is to, disconnect from God and connect to the ego. That's just such a horrible choice, and how much more empowered I feel when I connect to God. And God is always there.
Yeah. You talk about the news. To me, I just interpret it, and this is me, a good against evil. That's what's going on right now. Good as opposed to evil. And evil always loses out. So maybe that's why I'm not downtrodden by the news at all. I really just feel that's what's happening. I'm not even going to interpret the difference, really. I mean, I know what my mind tells me is the difference, and I see good things coming. We're at a point now where we're really kind of on level, terrain. It's like it's shaky, and it's gonna just become, it's going to eventually. I hope I see it in my lifetime, and I really do. That we do begin to see the beginnings of the light, the peace, the joy that is going to be on a universal level. And I think that what has to change is the media. The media needs to change. The media does not report the accuracy, doesn't give you the truth, because you can tell just by different flipping the channels, and every news channel will give you a different point of view, depending on what you want to hear. Anyway, but aside from that, that's how I kind of just interpret it. The Course in Miracles you brought up were on lesson 104. And we talked about our brother's love, and giving our love to our brother. And this affirmation alone. It's really a prayer. And it says, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. God's gifts of joy and peace are all I want. That's what we're talking about. Just within that prayer, within that sentence, what belongs to me in truth is what I want. Don't we all want what belongs to us? So what God gives us is our birthright. That's what it's really saying. Then why shouldn't I want it, and why shouldn't I accept it? And I think we have to constantly remind ourselves that we do have the presence of mind to do it. I saw a quote. I love quotes. I saw a quote, and it said it all for me. It said, I wake up in the morning. No, what did it say? Oh, yeah, I can afford the price of eggs. I have clean sheets on my bed. I have people who love me in my life, and I wake up every morning in my right mind.
Mm.
What greater blessing could there be than that? I loved it. I really did. It was just said it all. I wake up in my right mind. That's all I want to do is I want to wake up in my right mind every morning and enjoy what I have to work with and enjoy the beauty that's really given to me to feel, and to embody that and to live it. It's not about talking about it. I often discuss this with Dove. He belonged to EST, or he went to one of the EST training sessions, and Werner Erhard said it best. Understanding is the booby prize. That was his phrase, which meant, we can understand it. We look at the Course in Miracles. Okay, I understand it, but we never understand it. We have to live it. And that's the difference. So it's a matter of not talking about it. Yes, it's nice to discuss because it keeps us with people who are like-minded, which is, to me, is a very nice thing to have. That's why I enjoy this program that we share our feelings on for that reason. Right, Susan?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I like that story too that you spoke about people that wake up. I mean, really what you shared is acceptance, accepting everything in their life exactly as it was, and gratitude, being grateful for what they had. Those are very important thoughts to maintain, because I know myself, when I resist my circumstances, as Carl Jung says, what you resist persists. Well, that connects me to ego domain, ego territory. Like the ego loves when I resist my circumstances, because then I'm caught up in angst, and then I'm basically embroiled in the darkness. But when I can just accept, because there is so much beauty in my life, and when I can just accept everything exactly as it is right here, right now, I feel peace, I feel serenity, I feel calm, I feel God, when I can accept everything in my life exactly as it is. And then gratitude is such an empowering feeling to embody as well. I mean, just to be grateful for all of life's beauty. I think I shared this story a couple times, but I'm running again frequently on the reservoir since the weather is starting to get nicer. And I tend to see the same people in the morning, and we know each other's name. We don't talk very much because I'm always running and I pass them. So we just, say hello. And there's this one gentleman. He's a little older than me, and he always walks around the reservoir, and we usually pass, and we smile. And his big thing that he loves to share with me is the fact that he sees deer. So whenever I pass him, he'll say, "Oh, I just passed by that rock, a family of deer." And he gets so excited and he loves these deer so much. And I think just to be excited about animals, to love animals. I mean, it's just such a high vibrational frequency. And by just, I guess, witnessing his great love for the deer, it connects me with my own elevated consciousness. When you see anyone get excited about anything that's important to them, it's a really beautiful energy exchange. It really is. And again, that's why you brought up the Chinese girl. I think children, I mean, children have an easy time getting excited about things. They really do. So that's why when we can connect to the innocence of a child, it's just such a nice place to reside, because anything that comes from love, anything that comes from compassion, anything that comes from innocence, it's just such a beautiful energy to tap into. So, accepting our circumstances exactly as they are, very empowering. Being grateful for everything in our life, very empowering. I mean, you think of the what's behind that. I was sitting down and I saw a couple pennies on the floor, and I know pennies are just about to stop being made, is something that I've heard, because it costs more to make them than what they're worth. But I was sitting down at a chair, I think it was yesterday, and I saw a couple pennies on the floor, and I remembered the whole, thought about gratitude, and I picked up the pennies, and I was grateful for you know, the money. Because I think gratitude, I learned that is in a self-help seminar once, just always be grateful for whatever. I mean, even though money is inconsequential, whatever we can be grateful for, it's a very empowering energy to tap into, because gratitude is empowering. So, from what I understand, three really empowering emotions to tap into to connect us to our true self: acceptance, gratitude, and then the most important quality is forgiveness. We're always being taught in A Course in Miracles how forgiveness is bringing us home to heaven. And again, we forgive not so much for the other person, we forgive for ourselves, which was something else I was listening to from A Course in Miracles speaker, because A Course in Miracles is very clear that there is never, ever sacrifice. We don't have to sacrifice our desires to help our brother. This is what the ego teaches. The ego teaches that if we sacrifice our desires, we can do something to benefit our brother. But A Course in Miracles is saying, no, no, no. There is no such thing as sacrifice. Whatever we give to our brother, we receive in our own mind. So we're not forgiving for our brother's sake. We're forgiving for our own sake, so we can connect to the innocence within our own heart. There is never any sacrifice. And, this is kind of a big subject too, with yesterday being Palm Sunday, next Sunday being Easter. Traditional Christian is teaching that Jesus sacrificed himself for our sins. Course in Miracles is no, no, no. What we need to do is focus on the resurrection in order to connect to the truth of who we are. Right, Myrna?
Yes, that's, I'm laughing because we talk about what we're watching on TV. And there's something that's great. You can see it on YouTube. And, to me, it's entertainment. You know how all these scams, you see all these scammers on, and they're usually from India and they'll call this number and it's a scam and they try to get into your bank account. Well, there's one guy and he's got a whole podcast on this and it's called Torturing a Scammer Till They Give Up. One of those, and anyways, we watched a couple of those segments. Well, it's great. This guy has got his website, okay, and he's got a fake bank account and all this stuff, and he'll call a scammer, or they call him. Actually, he calls a number that that he gets on in his email to call this number. He knows right away it's a scam, so he calls them up, and he's got this whole bank account set up, and they see he's got like $1 million in his account and he changes his voice. He sounds like a little old lady who doesn't know what she's doing, and they are telling her, what to do. They're going to help her with a bank account and so forth. And she's pressing all the wrong digits, and they're getting increasingly frustrated and frustrated. Okay, I'll try again. Then she puts in a zero where a one should go, whatever. It was so funny. It was so enjoyable to watch. And they're getting more and more frustrated, What are you doing? You are driving me crazy here. What's the matter with you? Why don't you watch yourself? I mean, this is the scammer is kind of fighting back. But anyways, everybody gets theirs in the end, I guess. So it was very enjoyable that he really was able to divulge a whole program around that. Anyway. You can find it on YouTube and you can watch a couple of them. They're entertaining, if anything. So
That's
yeah,
very funny.
it
Myrna,
really
that's
is.
very, very funny.
We the whole family was sitting around the TV while my grandson was kind of, showing one of them. Anyway.
Well, of course, in Miracles says the separation occurred when the Son of God forgot to laugh.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
laughter is just the most empowering tool. There's
Yeah.
many
Well, it's
enlightened
like you
masters.
want them to see get theirs, I mean, like the murderers you're talking about. You want to see them get theirs. You don't want to see that they're fighting and people that don't even belong in this country are fighting in the courts and so forth. I mean, I look, I don't want to get into that, but that's what the news is, and you don't want to see that. You want to see somebody who's been so, violent and the crimes that are committed, and yet they're protected. You're right. There are people that are protecting the violator. The same thing with the scammer, and so you want to, it's a good thing to say. Give it
That's
back.
very funny. That's very funny.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. I know. Sometimes before we go to sleep at night too, my husband and I start cracking jokes, and it's just so like uplifting to laugh. I think God is a really great comedian, is what I think. He loves when we laugh because then we could just feel the truth and the joy and the essence of who we are. So it sounds really funny. I like that. It is now 4 o'clock. Thank you for this beautiful hour. And I'm always more connected to spirit after our talk. So thank you. And as A Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The only thing that's real is the love. Thank God for that. Thank God for Pal Talk and Gather for A Course in Miracles. And uh, thank you for just A Course in Miracles. We love A Course in
Thank you,
Miracles.
Susan. And I always enjoy you.
And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thank you so much, Myrna and Susan. Wonderful program. And